October 12, 2023. A convoy of armored SUVs rolls through the desert mountains of northwestern Mexico, 50 miles from the Arizona border. Inside one vehicle, encrypted radios crackle with coordinates. The cargo isn't contraband. It's something far more valuable: control of a single dirt road that generates $3 billion annually. By sunrise, 14 men would be dead, and the Mexican military would find something they weren't supposed to see: a fully paved underground highway, complete with ventilation systems, lighting, and rail tracks. This is the story of the most fought-over piece of earth in North America, and why 4 criminal organizations are willing to burn entire towns to control it. You've heard about the border. You've seen the headlines. But what you don't know is that 90% of organized crime violence in Mexico right now is concentrated around one specific corridor. Not the entire 2,000-mile border, one corridor. And the reason why will completely change how you understand what's actually happening down there. Let me take you back to 1993. NAFTA is about to be signed, and a low-level trafficker named Joaquin Guzman, not yet known as El Chapo, is sitting in a safe house in Agua Prieta, Sonora, staring at a map. He's traced his finger along a 100-mile stretch from the Sonoran Desert to Nogales, Arizona. He sees something nobody else does yet. This isn't just about moving product across the border. It's about controlling the approach routes, the staging areas, the tunnels that take 18 months and $4 million to build. And right there, in that specific corridor, the geography creates a perfect bottleneck. Mountains on both sides, limited roads, small towns you can control completely. Only a handful of crossing points the U.S. Border Patrol can't monitor 24/7. Guzman circled one town on that map, a nothing place called Altar, population 8,000, 56 miles from the border. And he realized something that would reshape the entire underground trade. Whoever controls Altar controls the entire northwestern route, not just for prohibited substances anymore, for people. Because here's what happened that nobody talks about. Starting in the early 2000s, the real money stopped being traditional products. It became human smuggling operations. Think about this: traditional merchandise, even at peak prices, might generate significant revenue per unit. Know what a single person pays to be moved from Central America to Arizona right now? $15,000 per person. And you can move 50 people through that corridor in a single night. Do the math. That's $750,000 in one night from one group. The criminal organizations realized they weren't just in the traditional business anymore. They were in the logistics business. And Altar became the distribution hub of human trafficking. But here's where it gets insane. By 2008, the Sinaloa organization, Chapo's group, had essentially created a monopoly on this route. They'd built the infrastructure, compromised every official who mattered, established safe houses every 20 miles. They were making an estimated $12 million per week just from this one corridor. Then Chapo got arrested in 2016, and everything collapsed into chaos. The Jalisco New Generation group saw an opportunity. These operators were younger, more aggressive, and backed by different money. They had overseas chemical suppliers helping them dominate the synthetic substance trade. They didn't just want a piece of the corridor, they wanted to humiliate Sinaloa by taking their crown jewel. In July 2017, CJNG operatives rolled into Altar and did something unprecedented. They broadcast their takeover online. The message wasn't subtle. This plaza is ours now. Before we go further, if you're finding this story as mind-blowing as I did researching it, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. We dive deep into stories the mainstream media won't touch, and your support helps us keep investigating these hidden worlds. All right, back to what happened next. Because this is where things get really dark. Except CJNG's takeover wasn't complete, because what they didn't fully understand was that controlling Altar meant controlling the entire supply chain. And Sinaloa had spent 20 years building relationships with the Guatemalan and Honduran networks that actually controlled the flow of migrants heading north. You can own the warehouse, but if you don't control the supply chain, you own nothing. So Sinaloa hit back. Hard. What happened next is where this story gets truly disturbing. Between 2018 and 2023, the town of Altar changed hands 11 times. 11. Entire families disappeared. The church became a morgue. The local police force quit, all of them, same day. In March 2019, the mayor fled to Phoenix and requested asylum. And through all of this, the U.S. government published exactly 0 official reports about what was happening in Altar specifically, because acknowledging it would mean acknowledging something they desperately didn't want to admit. The border isn't porous because of lack of enforcement. It's porous because there's a specific route that's economically irreplaceable, and shutting it down would just create a more dangerous alternative. Now we need to talk about the tunnels. Remember that underground highway I mentioned at the beginning? In January 2023, Mexican authorities raided a warehouse in Altar and found an entrance shaft. When they went down, they couldn't believe what they found. This wasn't some crude passage. This was a 30-foot deep, 3-mile-long underground road, wide enough for vehicles with concrete reinforcement, electric lighting, and a narrow-gauge rail system. The engineering was sophisticated enough that authorities suspected contractors who work on Mexico City's metro system had been involved. The price tag? Estimated at $8 million. But here's the detail that kept me up at night when I learned about it. They found living quarters down there. Bunk beds, a kitchen, medical supplies. This wasn't just for moving product. This was infrastructure for moving people, long term. They were keeping migrants underground for days, maybe weeks, waiting for the right moment to push them across. The tunnel had 8 separate exit points on the Mexican side, and 3 known exits that authorities believe reached U.S. territory, though the U.S. side exits were never officially confirmed because they were allegedly discovered on private ranch land, and the investigation got complicated. The organization that built this tunnel? Nobody knows for certain. That's the wildest part. Sinaloa claimed they didn't build it. CJNG didn't take credit either. Some Mexican intelligence analysts believe it was actually a third player, the Beltran Leyva organization, a smaller but extremely well-connected group that specializes in compromising high-level officials. They might have built it specifically to rent access to other organizations, staying neutral in the larger conflict. Imagine that. A criminal enterprise so sophisticated they're essentially operating like a utility company, charging competitors for infrastructure access. By mid-2023, the violence reached a tipping point. The Mexican government deployed 3,000 troops to the Altar region, not to shut down the corridor. They knew that was impossible. But to freeze it, create enough military presence that no organization could move freely. It worked for about 6 weeks. Then came August 2023, and what locals now call La Semana Negra, the Black Week. Someone, and investigators still don't know who, orchestrated simultaneous attacks on military checkpoints across the entire corridor. 14 different attacks. Same night. They used drones carrying explosives, commercial drones, modified with homemade devices, targeting military vehicles. This wasn't typical organized crime violence. This was asymmetric warfare. The military retreated, and for 1 week, there was no law enforcement presence on that highway at all. An estimated 2,000 people were moved through the corridor in those 7 days. Gross revenue for whoever controlled it? $30 million. In 1 week. The drone attacks changed everything because they revealed something terrifying. These organizations now have the resources, technical expertise, and coordination to conduct military-grade operations. They're not street gangs anymore. They're paramilitary organizations with better equipment than some actual militaries, and they're fighting over a piece of territory that generates more cash than most Fortune 500 companies. So where does this leave us right now, in early 2025? Altar is technically under Mexican military control, but everyone knows that's theater. The corridor is still active. The tunnels are still there. Authorities have found and destroyed 12 separate tunnel systems in the past 18 months, but they know there are more. Satellite imagery analyzed by independent researchers suggests at least 6 additional underground construction sites within the Altar region. Intelligence estimates suggest the Altar corridor is still generating between $2 and $3 billion annually in combined illicit trade revenue. And here's the final twist that brings this full circle. Remember those armored SUVs from the beginning, the 14 men who lost their lives? Mexican investigators eventually identified them. They weren't organization members. They were former Mexican Special Forces operators who'd been hired as private security by a Guatemalan trafficking network trying to establish their own direct route, cutting out the Mexican organizations entirely. They'd built their own tunnel, smaller, cruder, but functional. And they were moving their first group of migrants through when they got ambushed. The incident wasn't organization-on-organization violence. It was established groups defending their business model against international competition. That underground highway authorities found? Still there. They filled in the entrances, but the tunnel itself is intact, too expensive to destroy properly. And locals in Altar report hearing construction sounds at night, new digging. Because here's what I've learned researching this story. You can't shut down the corridor without understanding why it exists. It exists because there's $3 billion in annual demand for the service it provides. And until that economic reality changes, someone will always control that route. The only question is which organization will be willing to go the furthest to keep it. The next time you hear about border violence, understand what you're really hearing about. You're hearing about the most valuable piece of criminal infrastructure in the Western Hemisphere, a 100-mile stretch of desert where the geography, economics, and geopolitics have created something unprecedented. Not a border, a battlefield. And it's not going anywhere.